Hello and welcome to Community Connection. I'm your host, Keith Erickson. Today our guest is Rusty Sullivan. Rusty is the Executive Director of the Sports Museum located in the TD Garden. Rusty also spearheads the Boston vs. Bullies initiative, and we want to welcome Rusty to the set. Thanks so much for being here.
Keith, thank you for having me. Really
all right, you are the Executive Director of the Sports Museum at the TD Garden. How does this all tie in with Boston vs. Bullies?
Well, you know, we're a museum. We have a great collection of stuff on Boston sports. You know, you name it, from the Patriots and the Red Sox to the Celtics and the Bruins to Olympics and boxing and figure skating. So a lot of great things on display. And if you haven't been to the museum, it's worth checking out if you're a Boston sports.
And it's right in the garden.
It's right in the garden, levels 5 and 6, right?
Okay.
So, and it really, when you consider Boston as a sports city, we're the best sports city in America. There's no question about it. And we're making history the last 15 years. I mean, I don't think I have to tell you or anyone in listening how many championships we've won. So, you know, there's a lot there. But what we really are is an educational institution, and it's using that platform of Boston sports, which is such a powerful platform, and using it to help kids, right? So we have a couple different programs that we've developed over time. One is Stand Strong. We is a character education program that we deliver in the inner city to help kids build strong character so they can stand up to drugs and violence and all the other challenges kids face today.
Sure.
And about 5 years ago, we decided to take on the issue of bullying, which has become a huge issue.
Oh, it's widespread.
It's widespread, absolutely. It cuts across everything, Keith. I mean, race, gender, socioeconomic, it doesn't matter where you live, who you are. Bullying can hit anybody at any time, and it really hurts kids. So anyways.
Where has it been used? Where has Boston versus Bullies been used? Right here, is it right in Massachusetts only, or do you spread out in New England?
So it's a program that we deliver in schools, mainly grades 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
And it's been used throughout the Commonwealth, mainly Eastern Massachusetts, but also in Central. We've been in New Hampshire, schools in New Hampshire. We've been in schools in Rhode Island. So, you know, and we're slowly growing it geographically. More than 60,000 kids have experienced the program since we began it in 2013, including many kids in Braintree. You know, we've had kids from the Hollis School and the Highland School, Liberty, Flaherty. They've all had experienced Boston versus Bullies as part of the.
I know we have a personal story that we want to get to, but how do schools, if they're watching this right away, get to the point and get Boston versus Bullies in their school?
Just go to our website, bostonvsbullies.org.
Okay.
That's bostonvsbullies.org. And there's forms in there that you can fill out, and we'll get right in touch with you. And, you know, the thing I should mention to schools, okay? Schools everywhere, including in Braintree, budgets are tight. We're free of charge.
Free of charge?
Free of charge. So we are privately funded with people like New Balance and the Highland Street Foundation, the Red Sox Foundation, Macy's, the Bruins Foundation, Celtics, I mean, down the line, Mabel Louise Riley Foundation. There are a number of foundations and organizations that have provide us with funding so we can deliver it to schools free of charge because budgets are tight. And we do it happily, quite frankly. So it's, you know, so it's great.
So how long has Boston versus Bullies been around? Tell us where it originated and how it originated.
Well, it actually, you know, it's funny. I mean, it really originated in my home. I have two sons, and the oldest one at the time was a fifth grader, and he's a freshman in college now, which sort of shows you how quickly time flies.
Yes, it does.
He's also about 5 inches taller than me, but that's another story for another day. I used to be 5'11" with the afro, but now I'm just 5'9". Yeah. Anyways,
Fletch reference for anybody who else doesn't get that one. So go check out the movie Fletch, Chevy Chase. Yes.
So my son, who's we got a report from his teacher saying that Ramsey was involved in what could be perceived as a bullying situation. And naturally, my wife and I were alarmed and immediately went in to see the teacher. And she said, you know, it wasn't really him. It was a group of 4 kids, and he wasn't the lead person, but one of the kids was really picking on the other one. And he was in the background with the other 3 kids kind of laughing and giggling. And he shouldn't have done that. And the teacher was right, but he wasn't, you know, so we were less alarmed, but still, hey, look it, you shouldn't have done that. So we went back and we sat down with him and said, hey, you know, why did you do that? Why did you lie? And he said, Dad, I didn't know what to do. And I was just nervous about it. And I just kind of laughed and giggled. And, you know, so it occurred to me, you know, that stuck with me. And when we decided, you know, when we were sort of looking around like, okay, we have a couple good programs, do we want to build another one? And bullying was all over the front pages, right? And, you know, we said, you know, we really need to build the type of program that's going to tell 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, give them options, give them strategies so they know what to do when they're caught up in these situations. Whether they're getting bullied themselves or whether they're watching it taking place as the bystander, to give them some guidance, some strategies, some options that they can have in their toolbox. Because quite often, there's a lot of attention paid to bullying, but often it's on the back end after bullying happens with reporting and all that stuff. We're a very proactive program that really wants to sort of have kids in advance think about what they can do, depending on the circumstance, depending on the kid. And so that's really was the genesis of Boston versus Bullies. And from there, we built a program that did exactly that, and also leveraged the star power of the athletes that we have featured in the program, like Mookie Betts and Allie Raisman. So.
I was just going to say, you have some local athletes right there. Allie, you got Mookie Betts. I saw Torrey Krug, I believe, on the video. A couple other guys as well from the Revolution and everybody else. If you can name some of those guys, and why are athletes so powerful when they deliver this message?
Well, so we have 9. We have Mookie Betts, we have Patrick Chung from the Patriots, we have Terry Rozier from the Celtics, Torrey Krug, Andrew Farrell from the Revolution, Martin Bose from the Cannons, Allie Raisman, Christy Mewis, who's a national soccer player, and Sydney Ross, who's a track athlete, right? So 9 in all, and they're featured on they're all featured in the Boston versus Bullies video, and they're all in uniform, and they're all giving bullying strategies and bullying advice that is grounded in the best research. They said exactly what we needed them to say. And what makes it so powerful is kids listen to athletes. I mean, they just do. Bottom line. So you remember Charles Barkley a couple years ago said, hey, athletes aren't role models. I love Charles Barkley. He was wrong. Athletes are role models, like it or not, right? So I can give a speech to a bunch of 4th graders, and they may listen to me, they may not. If Mookie Betts is saying it, they're going to listen. And it doesn't matter if the kid's an athlete or not, and particularly in this area, particularly in Boston, Massachusetts, where our teams are so revered, and the way we look at sports, it's part of our identity. It defines who we are. We see the best in we help the Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, championships, Patriots. It helps define us. And kids, that trickles down to kids. And so it's a very powerful thing when you can get athletes, and we have a bunch of really good people who are associated with this program. When you can get them to deliver a message, it's going to resonate with kids, and it has. So.
It was interesting to watch the video, and I watched it the whole way through, and it was interesting to hear them talk about how they actually had instances of themselves being bullied. And I think that can relate to kids, because I have 2 daughters. They're in 7th grade, and we've had some instances where we've actually had to go to the school and help protect what we think are their best interests. And it's just an amazing thing to see these athletes where you just see them sometimes on the screen, but they actually make it more personal, I believe, and that really resonates with kids.
No question. I mean, I think when you're a 4th, 5th, or 6th grader, you're looking at an athlete, you realize the athlete is 10 years older than you, but you kind of want to know what he or she was like when they were your age. And you're right. You're absolutely right, Keith. So often these athletes who are now popular and good looking and athletic and wealthy, given today's Boston sports, it's hard to believe, but they were kids too, and they struggled as well. And almost every kid, no matter who you are, goes through a situation where they're involved in bullying. If they're not getting bullied themselves, which is often the case, you're watching it taking place. And no one it's a very comfortable thing to go through. And these athletes, it wasn't that long ago they were kids, and they remember it. And so we captured a lot of those stories, and it is powerful. And it makes it even that much more powerful for the kids watching the video.
Do you think it would be great for parents just to jump in and watch the video? I found it on YouTube, Boston versus Bullies. I just searched it. Yeah. Would you recommend any prep work before, if parents just want to jump on board with their kids to watch the video?
No, I don't think there's any prep work involved. The way the program works when we deliver it, we usually deliver it over 3 sessions, and we'll show some of the video, and then we have a bunch of activities and discussion questions that we wrap around. And so it's and we have lesson plans. So it's not just the video's at the heart of it, because that's the thing that resonates. To show a little bit of the video and then to do some activities, according to our lessons plans, is really a powerful thing. But if you're a parent and you just want to watch the video with your kids, that's pretty impactful too. I don't think you need to do any prep work in advance. And you can just sit down with your kid, and you know what? Quite frankly, the 32 minutes will fly by, because it's pretty interesting, and there's some stars involved. There's some star power involved. And I think for parents too, I think it's so, and being a parent just like you, we're quick to, what is bullying, right? So we begin with that discussion, that because quite frankly, there's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, if I see you in the hall and I say, that's a dumb looking shirt, Keith, and then we pass each other by, not a very nice thing to say. Is that bullying? No, it's not. It's not a very nice thing to say. Now, if I say it every day, repeatedly, and it's on purpose, and I'm trying to use my power against you, that's bullying, right? So often parents are quick to proclaim, and again, I'm not condoning, and by the way, that is a nice shirt, by the way.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it
really
up for
is.
these shoes,
Really good. But
I look my best.
Yep, you do. You do look good. But it was just an example. So I mean, it grounds parents with that. So you obviously want to pay attention to what's going on with your child, and you want to be able to spot if you think that something's going on. But you also don't want to proclaim bullying where it doesn't take place. But if there is bullying taking place and it does involve your child, the rest of the video gives plenty of strategies on what your kid can do, and you can talk to them about, like, what do you think you'll do if you're involved in those situations. So
now, there's different types of bullying.
Sure.
You got to explain them all to me.
Okay. Well, this is the 21st century. Sure. So when we were growing up, the main one was on, the classic bullying was on the playground or at the locker, and I push you against the locker, physical, and that still takes place for sure. There's also verbal bullying as well, just name calling and teasing and taunting. But
I like the way you said that, though, because one quip here or there during recess or you don't specifically classify that as bullying, but I like that you mentioned that it was repeated. Yeah. So for something to be bullying, it's got to be on purpose, it's got to be repeated, and it's got to involve some sort of abuse of power. It always comes down to power. With adults, it comes down with power. With kids, it comes down to power. So the kid doing the bullying somehow has more power than the kid he is bullying or she is bullying. And so that's the definition of bullying. It's repeated, it's deliberate, and it's about the abuse of power. So it can take a form physical, as we talked about, verbal. It can be relational too. That is that's the classic, I want to, we're going to sit apart from you at the lunch. We're a group of 6 friends, and suddenly we decide to freeze you out, and you sit down with us, and we all move and go to a different table. Wow. Some sort of social exclusion, and that can be very hurtful and very powerful. And then, as I said, we're in the 21st century. We have cyberbullying today, and honestly, that's really raised the stakes, because cyberbullying means bullying that takes place via your phone, via text, via Snapchat, via social media. And it has raised the stakes, because in the old days, in the example I gave at the locker, and I push you against the locker, that's me and you, and there's usually somebody watching it taking place, almost always somebody watching it, because that's why the bully's doing it, to get attention. Gotcha. Of course, that has a huge impact on you. You feel ashamed, but there's a limited universe of people involved with that. When you're talking about cyberbullying, and you're posting harmful things about somebody online, it can spread like that, and the audience is exponential. And kids know that, and it's just a very potent form of bullying. And quite frankly, one of the downsides of kids having phones. I mean, I know they got to have them. Right. We didn't want our kids to have them, but they eventually got them in 4th or 5th grade. And it's just bullying takes place over the phone, and it is what it is, but there's strategies to, if you're getting cyberbullied, to how you can deal with it. I was going to say, is it cyberbullying taking over for those other verbal and physical ones? Could you put a percentage on it?
No, I'm sure the percentages exist. It's adding to the. Often it takes place. It'll be physical bullying supplemented with cyberbullying.
Gotcha.
And there's still going to be physical bullying for as long as the kids will be kids, and we'll go to schools. And there's always going to be verbal bullying as well. I mean, cyberbullying is something that I would say, not to break it down by gender, but often it involves girls too. I mean, a lot of bullying takes place, as I said.
Yeah, you don't think about that, right?
Yeah, you don't think about that.
I have girls, and so now it's front and center for me, because that's all I have. I have 2 girls, and I don't have any boys, so I didn't really think about it. But then when it started to occur about a year ago, was like, girls do this?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it doesn't necessarily. I mean, and we always think of bullying as physical. I mean, that's immediately what you think of.
Sure.
But it really, it more often. I mean, I would say actually, verbal and cyberbullying are more common than physical. I don't have the statistics, but it can come in different forms and in hybrids as well.
Hey, we're talking with Rusty Sullivan. He's the executive director of the Sports Museum at the TD Garden, and he's also, he basically spearheads Boston versus Bullies. It's an educational program that he's really been involved with since the, I guess, the get-go, shall we say, about 4 or 5 years ago. And we've been talking about cyberbullying, and are there any warning signs of a child being cyberbullied, and what maybe should parents look out for?
Well, you know,
it's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Sometimes you just don't know what. It's hard. I mean, you might see sleep patterns disturbed. You might find that your child doesn't want to go to school. Their eating habits might fall off. You know, and that doesn't mean bullying's taking place. That could be a lot of different things. Sure. But those are the types of things as parents that we watch for, because you need to constantly check in with your kid, and you need to ask them, because so often, Keith, when kids get bullied, the natural reaction is to bottle it up and not to tell anyone, not to tell your parents, not to tell your friends, and just hope it goes away. Mm-hmm. And that's about the worst thing you can do, because it usually doesn't go away, and it just builds and builds and builds, and really can impact a kid's lives in a profound way. So, you know, getting a dialogue going with your child, particularly if you think something's a little bit amiss, bullying might be there. It might be part of the problem.
Is it on purpose, bullying?
Always. I mean, it's always. I mean, does
it have a means to an end? Like, why does the bully do what he does?
Well, you know, we're talking generalities, but
sure.
But typically, why the bully bullies is to get attention. They have something going on in their own lives, usually some sort of source of unhappiness, or they want to become. They have some sort of power, whether they're bigger than everyone else, or whether they, you know, whether they're an athlete, or whether they just have popularity, and they want more popularity, and they think that by bullying and belittling somebody, you know, they're going to elevate themselves that much more. Actually, the opposite is true. Usually, bullying makes you more unpopular.
Right.
But that's not what the 4th, 5th, 6th grader thinks. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, typically, so that's the classic sort of bullying. You know, this is very important. Our program doesn't vilify those kids either. What they're doing is not.
It's a good point. It's a great point.
It's not what they're doing. We cannot condone that. We want them to stop right away. Mm-hmm. But there are kids too, right? Mm-hmm. And kids have all sorts of problems. Some kids turn to bullying and are doing the bullying. We need to get them to stop. We need to get them to deal with their problems and find better ways to use their power. Mm-hmm. And there's many stories of kids who were actually doing the bullying and actually stopped and, you know, became great kids, right? Where you get worried is if kids bully and they continue to bully, because that can lead to a lot of problems later in life, and it can manifest itself into violence and into drug and alcohol abuse. And I mean, the statistics are, I mean, you know, the research is a little alarming. If your kid is bullying, you got to get them to stop, because it's not a good pattern. It's going to lead to other things down the line.
How do you approach? Say you get this information, boom, you get a call from the principal, you get a call from the super. Your kid is the one bullying a couple kids. It's been going on for a year. You didn't know about it. What are some of the things that they maybe can find on your website, or what advice, I guess, would you give them right off the chute?
Well, the first is, I mean, it sounds pretty fundamental. Stop right now.
Yeah.
Stop the bullying right now. I mean, got to stop it. Not tomorrow, not a week from now. Today, right now. Okay. The second is find a way to try to make amends with the kid you've been bullying. Our anti-bullying experts, Michelle Gormley, our Director of Education, and Kim Story and Ron Slaby, this team of experts we've gathered to help us build the program, you know, they're fond of saying sorry goes a long way, and it does. It really does. It doesn't erase what's been done, but, you know, and that's a hard thing for a 4th or 5th or 6th grader to say. And then it's about, it really depends on the circumstance, but then that's where the parent comes in is, look, stop, say you're sorry, and then now let's talk about why you're doing this and how we can, what problems are beneath the surface that are making you do this, and how we can channel whatever that was bothering you in a different direction.
I always thought maybe an old school way of maybe ending the problem would be bring those two kids together, you know you have the bully, you know you have the quote unquote the victim. Would it be something that parents should look at and like get the bully to say it right to his face with other people present? Like say, hey buddy, I'm so sorry, I'm going to start changing my ways and I apologize.
You know, it could work in certain circumstances, and other circumstances it might not work. And it really depends on the kid. I mean, that might depend. The kid who's getting bullied might just be too painful for him to, because in front of his parent who he looks up to have to sit there and be told, you know, sorry, I've been bullying you, I've been picking on you, all these. It might. So it really depends on the kid and the circumstance.
Sure.
I think when you're a parent, and if your kid is getting bullied, you've got to listen to the kid, and you've got to really listen to the kid. But you have to urge him or her. You got to do something to get out of the situation. And I'm going to do anything I can to help you. What do you want to do? There's a number of things you can do. You can go to a teacher and tell them about it. You can stand up to the bully if you feel comfortable. You can confide in a friend and see, or I can go and talk to the teacher. But you really want to let the kid set the game plan. But if they say something like, I just don't want to do nothing, it's going to go away, it usually doesn't happen.
I see. I like what you guys did with the website and the basic strategies and the scenarios that you give the kids and how that translate into the 4th, 5th, 6th graders that you're trying to reach. And is that the goal, obviously, to keep it simple?
Yeah, absolutely. It's to keep it simple. You know, there's not one solution. If you're getting bullied, there's not one solution. It's to keep it simple, give kids options, because certain things are going to resonate with different kids, and there's a number of things kids can do when they're caught up in these situations that can make it better and that can turn the situation around. And I should add this, and you mentioned it earlier, but it's worth repeating.
Definitely.
The strategies I've just been talking about, and you and I have been talking about, on the video that are laid out, Keith Erickson's not saying it, Rusty Sullivan's not saying it, Allie Raisman's saying it, Mookie Betts is saying same stuff. That's what makes it so powerful, because kids, it does resonate with kids and it sinks in, and it gives them things that they can turn to. And you know, the other point I wanted to bring up, Keith, is, you know, if you look at the bullying drama, you have the bully, the kid doing the bullying, you have the kid getting bullied, and then you always have a bystander.
Right.
You always have a bystander. Often it's multiple bystanders. Those are the kids we're trying to hit most of all, because they're the ones that have the real power in the situation, because the bully is bullying to impress the bystanders.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And if we can empower the bystanders to be a good teammate and stand up and do something to stop the bullying, and there's a lot of things they can do. They can walk away, they can stand up to the bullying, they can befriend them, and we give them a whole range of options. That's who we're trying to help the bully, we're really trying to help the victim, but most of all, we're trying to motivate the bystanders. They have the power to stop, they have the power to really make the situation better. And if we can do that in schools and on playgrounds and on teams, then we'll go a long way to making bullying stop on a widespread basis, is really to empower the bystanders and motivate them to stand up to the bully in their own way, however they want to choose. Because obviously, I keep saying it depends on the circumstances. Sometimes kids aren't going to feel safe to directly intervene and stand up to the bully for understandable reasons. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But there are other things they can do, bystanders. They can, you know, go tell a parent, they can befriend the kid, they can rally other kids against the bully. There's just a number of things.
Yeah, imagine if somebody's getting bullied right there in the hallway, lockers are getting rattled and everything else, and there's one bully and one victim, and there's 15 kids. Imagine if those 15 kids, or even 5 of those kids, just went over to the victim and just put their arm around him and walked away.
Yeah. Or went over to the bully and said, hey, just leave him alone. You know, it's not, and that usually diffuses the situation. It usually works. And yes, or go over to the kid, who feels alone on an island. The natural thing to do, unfortunately, like my son, the natural thing to do is you don't know what to do, so you do nothing, or you sit there and you giggle nervously. And, certainly that you can understand that, but that's almost as bad as bullying itself, because you're adding to almost the mob mentality of the situation.
Sure. How many times do you think you need to repeat the not repeat the situation, but repeat the message and to these 4th, 5th, 6th graders before you've seen action maybe happen? And have you gotten any good feedback from the people that you're trying to reach?
Yeah, we've done evaluation studies, and you know, with trained evaluation people, and I know it's kind of wonkish, but they go into schools. They, you know, how is the classroom behaviors and the school behaviors and the bullying in the school beforehand, and then after we delivered the program, did things improve? And things do improve. It doesn't completely go away, but it improves. Yeah. In terms of the message, I mean, we don't want to just show the kid the 32-minute video and say, okay, they're all set. That's why when we deliver our program, it's over the course of usually 3 classroom sessions.
Okay.
And we wrap a lot of, where I mentioned the activities and the questions and the exercises. That's all to reinforce the messages and the strategies that are on the video. So we typically do it, you know, 1 session devoted to the bully, 1 to the victim, and 1 to the bystander. And you know, you watch the portion of the video, and then we have exercises and questions designed to reinforce it. And usually we have a wrap-up session. So kids need to hear things multiple times. It can't just be, you know.
I know I need to hear things multiple times.
Oh, absolutely, no question, no question. So, I mean, that's human, and kids are no different than adults.
So, best case scenario, Boston versus Bullies continues to grow, continues to get the word out. Let's give some people some information where they can contact you.
Well, yeah. So it's, the best thing to do is go to our website. I mean, bostonvsbullies.org. You'll see everything there. I mean, it's open source material. So you'll see the facilitator guide we have. You'll see the educational videos. You'll see other videos we have featuring Terry Rozier and Mookie Betts and Ellie Raisman and all of them. You'll see a lot of the anti-bullying advice. So it's a great place for parents to visit if they think that their kid might be getting bullied.
I was astounded. I loved it.
Yeah, it's great.
Opened my eyes.
It's very practical.
Yeah.
It's meant for parents and kids, and it's in that language. It's not in some technical educational language that people are going to be scratching their head, right? And then if you're interested, for us to bring our program to your school or to your after-school program, like Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, what have you, it's just a matter of, on the website, there's the easy place to fill out a form. We'll get right back to you. And again, free of charge. So
perfect. That's what I like. Free of charge. Great. Hey, Rusty, thanks so much for being here.
All right. It's been great. Thank you, Keith.
We were just talking to Rusty Sullivan, the executive director of the Sports Museum at the TD Garden and the driving force behind Boston versus Bullies. Rusty, again, thanks so much for being here. Excuse me. Until next time, I'm Keith Erickson. You've been watching Community Connection.